According to MSU, leaders today face adaptive challenges. Changes in society, markets, customers, competition, and technology around the globe are forcing them to clarify their values, develop new strategies, and learn new ways of operating. Often the toughest task for leaders is mobilizing people to do adaptive work. Adaptive work is required when our deeply held beliefs are challenged, when the values that we have made us successful become less relevant, when legitimate yet competitive perspectives emerge. We see adaptive challenges every day at our level, in our companies, engineering, developing and implementing strategies, looking at new business opportunities. We see adaptive challenges when marketing has difficulty working with operations, when cross-functional teams don't get along, and when senior executives complain that they are not using effective systems. Adaptive problems are often systematic problems with no ready answer. And this is such an important aspect of business that we need to acknowledge and that we need to discuss. In today's lesson, we are going to look at just that. Your behavior reflects your actual purpose. And with that, welcome to today's lesson about adaptive leadership. Today we're going to focus on adaptive leadership explained, then the key elements that all leaders and managers should know when it comes to adaptive leadership. So let's get into the first section of this lesson. So, adaptive leadership explained. Adaptive leadership is a practical leadership framework that helps individuals and organizations adapt and thrive in challenging environments. It is being able, both individually and collectively, to take on the gradual but meaningful process of change. It's about diagnosing the essential from the expendable and bringing about the real challenges to challenge the status quo. Adaptive leadership is defined as the act of mobilizing a group of individuals to handle tough challenges and emerge triumphant at the end. When you realize that your organization's aspirations, the innovations and projects you see cannot be obtained through your current approach, adaptive leadership and that framework is what you use to diagnose, interrupt, and create new possibilities with innovation to get your organization back to being inspired, back to getting things done. Adaptive leadership is a purposeful evolution in real time. But to understand adaptive leadership, we need to understand the difference between a technical versus an adaptive problem and the things that we actually face within the business. According to the Corporate Finance Institute, adaptive leadership recognizes that there are two kinds of problems. We have technical and adaptive that we face within the business. With technical problems, a satisfactory, predetermined response is already available. So you need one or more experts who possess solid reputation and they know how to address the issue. Overall, technical problems are mechanical and can be resolved by professionals. But with adaptive problems, there are absolutely no trained experts to deal with this problem at hand. Also, no set of established rules or procedures exist for this problem. In most cases, the definition of the problem is vague, and therefore they aren't really technical issues, so they can't be fixed as we would with a technical issue. It is in such situations that experts of an adaptive leadership becomes useful. Such an individual first helps to find the problem and then mobilize his or her co-workers to help come up with solutions. So you might not be an expert in the problem itself, but you might be an adaptive manager or leader, and therefore you can initiate the process and start to solve an adaptive challenge. Okay, so next up, we're going to distinguish between the two types of problems and challenges so that you get a better understanding of what this looks like in a business. According to Integrate, the single biggest failure in the exercise of leadership is to treat adaptive challenges like technical problems and therefore to apply technical solutions. The need to differentiate between technical and adaptive challenges is crucial to managers, teachers, parents. Appreciating the difference will help you come up with real understanding of what the problem is, how to create solutions, and how to create actual plans of action. Technical challenges are those that can be solved with experts, and it's easily done. But adaptive challenges is where the problem comes in. You have to be creative, you have to have an experimental mindset, and you need to be able to research. So, with that, technical issues are easy to define. So, it's something that comes up a lot. You already have a system for it. So, let's say you have a customer, they are not happy with the product or service, and they would like to return their product. The customer would like to return a pair of pants at a retail institute. Therefore, this problem can often lead itself to quick and concrete solutions. The customer is not happy, therefore, they will return the product. These can often be resolved by an authority figure or an expert. So the manager can come in, speak to the client, just apologize, maybe give them a voucher, and take in the faulty product and allow the customer to pick out another pair of pants. People are generally receptive to technical solutions. Because this is an easy fix, we already have systems in place, the manager has been trained, the employees have been trained, this is easy, right? So everyone involved understands the process, they understand what is going to happen, and therefore they know what to expect. Technical solutions can often be implemented quickly. So because it's easy and we have all these things in place, it's not a long process. You're not happy with the product, come in, return it. You can either get your money back or store credit, or you can get another pair of pants, right? So no big issues here. You don't have to get a team in to solve this problem. But adaptive challenges are different. They are difficult to identify, but they're easy to deny. So you know there's an issue, but you would rather not deal with it, because if you know there's an issue, you know it's difficult to solve and it's going to take time, money, resources. So a lot of managers and leaders shy away from this issue because they don't really want to deal with the effort it takes to work with adaptive challenges. When leaders are solving adaptive challenges, they need to think systematically. In order to understand the whole range of actors involved, they need to understand the root causes, which will require committing time and energy. This means you need to look at the role of the customer, the employees, managers, the systems. What programs are you using? How does technology come into play? So you have to investigate the entire company, the entire system that works with this problem. And this usually means that you have to look at the company as a whole. So you have to speak to different people, you have to find different points of view. You have to have the technical knowledge and expertise in order to look at all departments and at the different functions. So this is why this is so difficult. If managers and leaders don't have the expertise, they don't have the experience, they are unsure, they are going to avoid dealing with this, right? And I understand why, but when we make this change to get business acumen up, to understand the functions of the company, this becomes better, and therefore you become more adaptive as a manager and a leader. So it requires a change in values, beliefs, roles, relationships, and approaches to how you accomplish goals, right? Because if there's a problem and it's consistent and it's not improving, we need to change. But with change, there comes resistance. With resistance, people are unhappy. And therefore, it becomes harder and harder to change and update adaptive challenges. People with the problem are the main actors who need to work in resolving it. Okay, so this means that everyone involved, so if we have employees with the same behavior, if we have departments continuously struggling with everything, everyone involved with this issue needs to be involved. If they are not involved, the behavior will not change, the solution will not be resolved, and therefore nothing will happen. It requires change in numerous places, usually cross organizational boundaries. Therefore, requires system thinking. So it is usually at all levels of the company. It means that different departments, different employees, managers, leaders, everything needs to change in order to address adaptive challenges. People often resist while acknowledging the existence of adaptive challenges. Like we said, it takes time, it takes money, it takes energy. So if you can avoid it, a lot of managers and leaders will. Because maybe the manager and leader feels like this is not the point, I don't want to address it now, it's not that big of a deal, or I simply don't have the skills and the knowledge to actually change this. So we have to keep all of this in mind when we look at technical and adaptive challenges. But like we said before, so let's say you have a technical problem, you're comfortable with fixing it. If you apply the same method to adaptive challenges, it's not going to work because you need to put in the research, finding out the information, and bringing everyone together in order to face these challenges. So let's look at the main principles of adaptive leadership. First off, an adaptive leader needs to be emotionally intelligent. Why is that? Well, you're going to deal with a lot of emotions, different departments, different employees, behaviors, and you have to bring everyone together. You might not have all the expertise, all the knowledge, but you are the person who can bridge the gap with communication, persuasion. You are the person who has the ability to research and fully understand everything because you are able to take a step back and see the whole problem for what it is. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your own feelings and those of others. With this awareness, an adaptive leader is able to build trust with other participants and foster quality relationships. Trust is your key word here. If people don't trust you as an adaptive leader, they're not going to be honest. They're not going to give you the needed feedback, and they're going to feel under threat. But if you create trust, people will tell you their honest feedback, their best practices, and where they're going wrong. Therefore, you have the actual data to make informed decisions. According to the Corporate Finance Institute, you also have to have organizational justice. Another fundamental practice of adaptive leadership is fostering a culture of honesty. Adaptive leaders know the best policies to introduce for the good of the organization. They also know the best ways to introduce these changes so that people embrace them. Adaptive leaders are willing to accommodate other people's views. Hence, they are valued and respected, and employees want to be part of this investigation. They want to be part of solving adaptive challenges. Adaptive leaders entails learning new things. If one technique is not yielding the desired result, an adaptive leader goes out of his or her way to create a new strategy, a new way of working with people, a new way of collecting data. With new techniques, both employees and the company at large will experience growth and development. Adaptive leadership is also about having a deep sense of character, being transparent and creative. Adaptive leaders may not always be right, but they earn the respect of those they work for because they are honest, because they are transparent about what they're looking for, about the experience that they have and the value they place on each employee. Because if your employees are not participating, if your employees don't feel part of it, they are not going to give you the right information. So let's look at the traits of adaptive leadership. So these are the traits that you need to have when you want to be an adaptive leader. So according to CFI, the ability to link organization change to the primary values, abilities, and dreams of the stakeholders involved. You need to have the capacity to create an environment that embraces diversity in terms of how people see things and take advantage of the collective knowledge and experience that everyone brings to the table. Therefore, the company will benefit, the company will grow because you took the correct steps. Change is tough and we all understand this, but as adaptive leaders, we understand that this process is painful. Therefore, we have the hindsight, insight, and foresight to fully understand how change impacts everyone and how to get the best practices in order to solve problems. Change is gradual. We understand that large-scale change is a gradual process, which calls for persistence and willingness to bear the pressure that comes with it. So as managers and leaders, we understand that adaptive challenges aren't easy to solve, nor are they easy to understand. So we need to understand that this is a gradual process, and when you get the solution that you want, it will take time for the organization's behaviors to change. Being proactive is looking for opportunities to investigate, to understand, and to understand the necessary resources that goes into problems and solutions. And mitigating mistakes is the ability to know when something is not working. So you are approaching adaptive challenges and you're not getting the results that you want. The best thing is to stop, reassess, get feedback, understand what's going right, what's going wrong, and then saying, listen, guys, I made a mistake. This is not working, but because I took the time to reflect, therefore my hindsight, I gained a lot of insight, and my foresight is that I would like to change in the following ways. So you see, these are such practical ways of looking at problems that you have a lot more information to go ahead. Because you did the exercise of hindsight, insight, and foresight with your employees, they will respect that you took the time to create this process because you share these traits as a group. Then finally, taking risks. When you think you have the answer and you think you have the solution, it's time to take a risk. It's time to encourage innovation, creativity to solve this problem. And you can always go back and change it and adapt it, but you need to have the courage and the consistency to take that risk. Now, just for a little brain break, we are going to end this module in environment scanning. We're going to look at how to scan for opportunities, how to be ahead of the game, and that will conclude module 4 of your leadership and management diploma. And I am so excited to get you guys to the final lesson and see you succeed and reach your goals. But for now, let's move back to the elements of adaptive leadership. So let's look at what are the challenges when implementing adaptive leadership. Adaptive leadership does bring a couple of challenges. This leadership model is about experimenting, discovering new knowledge, and making numerous adjustments throughout your company. According to CFI, it is only through a change of attitudes and adjustments of policies that you will manage and sustain change, and therefore you will thrive. However, shifting individuals' beliefs, their values, their perceptions is not an easy task. Making changes requires you to look at the past, grow from it, and then create a sense of inclusion for your employees. For instance, if you want to implement a new marketing strategy, then you will first embrace the fact that the current marketing techniques are not working. Most senior executives are reluctant to let go of lifelong policies that the company started. However, sticking to the old ways can hinder the benefits that can result from new methods. Other challenges that adaptive leadership presents is the stage of forming resistance. So your employees and other stakeholders and clients might not like the new methods and the way that you are approaching dealing with adaptive challenges. The most common method that people use to hinder adaptive challenges is by marginalizing, adverting, and attacking the solutions. If you notice any of these activities, you need to have a new way of helping the employees and the other stakeholders deal with this change. When it comes to traditional and adaptive leadership, we need to understand what each is to understand the difference. So, in practice, adaptive leadership focuses more on leadership as a practice than as a position. For a manager using adaptive leadership, situations constantly evolve and require both flexibility and innovation. So let's look at what classic management actually is. Classic management theory is based on the belief that workers only have physical and economical needs. It does not take into account the needs of job satisfaction, but instead advocates a specialization of labor, centralized leadership and decision-making, and therefore profit maximization. Here are some areas where adaptive leadership differs to that of more traditional management. Job duties for employees remain broad-based, allowing more flexibility as opposed to having a detailed job list. Another one would be roles within an organization are fluid. For example, one person can fill in for another if the situation needs it, as opposed to in a traditional way where the employees are fixed to their role and nothing else. Another way adaptive leadership is different is communication is open and employees are encouraged to form their own networks to facilitate better sharing of information, versus that of a traditional way where the communication is more of a top-down approach. Policies are encouraged to allow that employees are innovative, creative, finding solutions, versus in a traditional way, we will see that there are strict rules. Employees cannot challenge the status quo. They cannot come up with new ideas because the organization feels like they have the best practices already in the company. With adaptive leadership, we see that the organization structures are temporary and fluid to meet the immediate situation needs, as opposed to in a traditional way where you are within your department, you have your role, and you don't really have the flexibility to change that at all. Lastly, with adaptive leadership, we see that there is a ranking structure in place. Influence is granted to people who demonstrate an ability to add value to the product, service, or process, as opposed to with a traditional approach, we see a top-down management structure. So you can see that adaptive leadership is a lot more fluid. It goes with the situation. It looks at what each challenge needs. Versus traditional, they have a structure. It is what it is, and everyone needs to fit within that. That means with this traditional structure, although it is good to have that structure in place depending on your business type, it also means that the company can struggle to deal with challenges, to deal with changes in the market, to deal with upcoming trends. Versus adaptive leadership, because the leader is adaptive, they look at the situation and they evolve. They also see that their team needs to do the same thing. So let's look at adaptive leadership in practices. We're going to look at some success stories of people who've done it and what they did with adaptive leadership. According to Villanova, the challenge with adaptive leadership is that it often runs contrary to traditional thinking or the usually defined roles for leaders and employees. However, there have been success stories that can provide inspiration as to why we need to look into adaptive leadership. For example, Cheryl Byron, writing in Inc., shared how adaptive leadership helped her get the best performance from her employees. Byron is the president and CEO of One Horn Transportation, a New Jersey-based freight brokerage that ships goods across the United States and Canada. Nothing that managed strategies in the 90s and early 2000s often involved fear and intimidation. Byron took a different approach when running her own company. She observed that some employees wanted to share personal information and become closer to co-workers, while others are all business. I take cues from each employee and manage them accordingly so that I can elicit the best performance. Those who want interpersonal bonds appreciate that she took interest in their lives and success. And for the other employees who just want to do their business, do their jobs, she adapted to ensure that she met their emotional needs. Another example is Travis. He is the author of Emotional Intelligence 2.0. He wrote in Forbes that adaptive leadership shows strong emotional intelligence, such as demonstrated by Byron. It doesn't shy away from hearing the truth. He writes that people need to feel respected and valued when we have adaptive leadership. Adaptive leadership can provide chief executives and others to influence positions and opportunities to improve skills, to look at the potential of employees, and to gain insight into company roles. So if you want to look more at the book he wrote about emotional intelligence with an aim of adaptive leadership, go check it out, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, for more insight. So let's look at the guiding principles when it comes to adaptive leadership. According to MSU, mobilizing an organization to adapt its behavior to thrive in new business environment is critical. Without such change, any company today will falter. Getting people to do adaptive work is the mark of leadership. Yet, most senior executives providing leadership finds this difficult. Well, why is that? Well, we see two reasons. First, to make change happen, executives have to break a long-standing behavioral pattern of their own, providing leadership in the form of solutions. Many executives reach their position of authority by virtue of their competency in taking responsibility and problem solving. But when a company faces an adaptive challenge, the focus of responsibility for problem solving resides not with the executive suit, but with the collective intelligence of employees at all levels. We need employees to cross boundaries. We need employees to use resources, and we need everyone to be involved when it comes to adaptive leadership. Second, adaptive change is distressing for people to grow through because it means new roles, new relationships, new values, new behaviors. So therefore, it makes it hard for employees to sacrifice in order for the company to resolve these issues and create a new way of doing business. So with that, we have 6 guiding principles when it comes to how managers can improve the way that they are leading adaptive work. Business leaders have to view patterns as if they were on a balcony. It does them no good to be swept up in a field of action. Leaders have to identify struggles over values and power patterns of work avoidance and other reactions to change. When business cannot learn quickly to adapt to new challenges, they are likely to face their own form of extinction. Leaders need to understand themselves, their people, and the potential sources of conflict when it comes to adaptive challenges and overcoming those challenges. Adaptive work generates distress. Before putting people to work on challenges for which they are not ready and they don't have a solution, a leader must realize that people can learn only so fast, and we need to maintain a productive level of tension and motivation without disabling our employees. Although leadership demands a deep understanding of the pain of change, the fears and sacrifices associated with it, as a manager and a leader, you have to be ready to understand the frustration, the pain, and all the issues that your employees are going to go through. You have to make sure that you are tough and ready to deal with the emotions yourself. Employees, colleagues, and customers will carefully observe verbal and non-verbal cues from the leader. So when you are struggling with change, your employees will struggle. That is why you need to understand the severity of stress and distress that happens with change. Different people with the same organization bring different experiences, assumptions, values, and beliefs. This diversity brings forth innovation and learning about new products, looking at it in a different way, and allows the company to come together. That is why you need to maintain discipline when it comes to attention, so that everyone can stay focused, have the same point of view, and have the same discussions. Everyone has a special access to information that comes from his or her particular vantage point. Everyone may see different needs and opportunities. People who sense early changes in the market are often those who thrive, and they bring forth strategic decisions and ideas that can benefit the company. When people do not act on their special knowledge, the business fails to adapt, and therefore the company is behind in the market. Therefore, we need to get people back to work, and we need to focus on what everyone brings to the table. Not only that, you need to empower employees. When they see something, they need to have a platform to speak and bring forth that change. Giving a voice to all people is the foundation of a firm willingness to experiment and learn. In fact, whistleblowers, creative defiance, and other original voices routinely get avoided and silenced. People speaking beyond their authority usually feel self-conscious, and sometimes they feel like it is too much, and therefore they don't speak out. Of course, it's hard to make sure that their communication is effective, but as a manager and leader, you need to protect the voices of your employees. You need to have psychological safety in place to allow your employees to talk about adaptive challenges, to talk about adaptive solutions. If not, people will not feel empowered and they will feel scared to speak out. With that, your company will be lacking behind, and these huge issues that you're facing as a collective will never be solved. Okay, so let's look at adaptive leadership challenges. So this example is by Tools Hero. Many regional broadcasters are confronted with a strong changing landscape. The media usage of their audience is no longer limited to radio or television, but has become more interactive with a lot of emphasis on social media. As a rigid organization, a regional broadcasting company can continue focusing on radio and television programs, finding money for themselves, and value old-fashioned measurements such as viewership and listenership. Letting go of hierarchy leadership and responding more adaptively to changing environment allows the board and editors to create a climate in which all employees recognize that their input is valued. Audience ideas and opinions are considered, and the organization can benefit from experimenting using valuable information by focusing more on social media. Monitoring will show what does and does not work in the response, leading to successes which the company can then use or failures that they can abandon. So with adaptive leadership, it means that they see that the traditional way might not be working as effective. If they do not use social media, they will be left behind. Therefore, looking at social media is so important, but as a collective, they need to understand what social media is, how can they use it, and then how can they measure it or not measure it. Therefore, adaptive leadership is challenging the status quo, being innovative, and bringing everyone together to solve this challenge. But with adaptive leadership, we see authority. So let's see how authority plays into adaptive leadership. According to open source, with authority, leadership effectiveness hinges on authority, something that leaders who emerge spontaneously in response to a problem might not always officially have. The practice of adaptive leadership defines several types of leaders, namely leaders with formal authority and or informal authority, and people who are adaptive leaders and or stakeholders. People with formal authority can officially ask others to do something. They are in a position of influence or a purpose to solve adaptive challenges. People with a great deal of formal authority could possibly have little informal authority. They may have the ability to stop a viable project or even an unviable project. They simply say yes or no, and therefore they can execute problems and solutions. They simply have the ability to address the adaptive challenges and execute on it. People with informal authority are experts on specific issues. They are some individuals unofficially bestowed upon or expected to be part of work because they are reputable, trustworthy, and they have expertise that is needed to solve an issue. On specific issues, people with informal authority possess high degrees of respect, skill, and expertise among the different stakeholders. These individuals can unofficially influence opinions. They can help to turn adaptive challenges into technical challenges. Adaptive leaders then influence a lot of people with the use of informal authority in decision making, learning, and execution when it comes to these issues. These leaders may also not have the formal authority, but because they have the respect and expertise, people are likely to follow them. So as you can see, we have both formal and informal authority when it comes to adaptive leadership, and both plays a vital role. I know that everyone might not have access to the summary notes, so I'm linking this in. If you want to know more about adaptive leadership, you can go check out a few YouTube videos, and you can also look at these books. These are the main books when it comes to adaptive leadership, and it gives you a lot of technical approaches, and it helps you understand how important this is in the business world. Then I want to challenge each and every one of you to go start reading up on adaptive challenges. You can create a list of technical and adaptive challenges that you are facing in your life or in your team right now. This will help you establish what you need, how you can approach this, and if you need authority or informal authority. I want to thank you all, and remember, we only have one lesson left in Module 4, and I know you guys are so excited to finish your professional diploma. Have a good one, and we will speak soon.